love how even though they cancelled the Clone Wars twice, they just can't seem to stop Dave Filoni making more Clone Wars. He's like, this show, it's called The Bad Batch, and they're like, it's not the Clone Wars, is it? He's like, no, it's called The Bad Batch. But it was pretty much a new season of Clone Wars, just with more of a focus on, you know, characters from the Clone Wars. And then this time, we focus again on characters from the Clone Wars, but it's not called the Clone Wars, it's called Tales of the Jedi. But I think a more apt title would be little baby nugget tales of the Jedi. You want to see some Jedi, but it's like a little bit of Jedi, like not a big long epic tale like you might, you know, want to see, like a story, like a full beginning, middle, end of a story. Just little chicken nuggets of tales of the Jedi. You know what? My title isn't as good. It's too long. Which would kind of be fun and ironic because this show is just so short. Like, I love this. I really, truly love this. Particularly the Count Dooku stuff. I thought that was spectacular. But it just felt so brief. It reminded me exactly of Visions. Like, my review, like in a sentence of Visions would be utterly stunning, but way too short. And Tales of the Jedi, utterly stunning, but way too short. Like, I kind of understand with the Visions, but it almost felt like a proof of concept. Like, hey, do you guys like seeing anime Star Wars? So that maybe we can get an anime Star Wars movie later on, which I think would be really awesome. Whereas Dave Filoni can make something as long as he wants. I don't understand why he gives us 1.5 episodes each. Like, the episodes are so short, they're essentially 1.5 episodes of a normal TV series. I think I would have much preferred 6 episodes for a character each. I don't think it needs to be an hour and a half, 2 hour and a half long movie. If you don't want to be forced to kind of do a long form story, you don't need to do that. I just think that this more felt like I watched episode 2, 3, and 6 of all their stories. Watching these episodes made me feel like I'd had an entree. A delicious, amazing entree. Something like Gordon Ramsay had cooked, and I'm like, ho ho ho, this is delicious. I can't believe how good it is. Like, my expectations were pretty high because it's Gordon Ramsay, but it was so good. And then I'm waiting for that steak and chips. I'm waiting for that, you know, the part that will fill me up. I've had a little delicious prawn dipped in some kind of sauce or whatever. I don't know what he does. I'm not a fancy boy. And you're like, so delicious. Had so much fun with this. Cannot wait for the main course. Oh, it's over. Oh, it's done. Will we ever get more of this? It just feels like if we're going to get more, you're going to give me little snippets again. Like, why couldn't have I had 6 episodes of Count Dooku tell his story, his fall from the Jedi, and then next season, tell Ahsoka Tano's story? Whatever that is. It's just kind of 3 random snippets of her life, which is fine, but it just kind of feels like a bizarre missed opportunity. I don't really understand why I get 6 episodes of something amazing that I want, but then I'm getting another 16 to 25 episodes of The Bad Batch. Not to throw any shade at The Bad Batch, but it's just like, those characters are fine, but maybe that show could be condensed into like 10 really tight stories, not 16, 17, 18, whatever it is, where I'm like kind of lose focus halfway through the season, and I come back at the end, I'm like, oh, there's some nice arcs here and there, but it feels like you can really tighten this up. Why is Obi-Wan Kenobi 6 episodes when it should have been a movie? And there are so many times where it's like, it's just too long. Why is it so long? Just give me a tighter, shorter story. And then when they give us the shorter stories, it's like, oh, why are the shorter stories always the most interesting ones that you've done the best job writing and telling the story with? And it's just so engaging. The Count Dooku episodes are so good. Like, I was like emotionally drained and shocked, but then it finished and it's like, I feel like there is like about 3 more episodes or another hour of content I would have loved to see of this story taking place as Count Dooku's fall. And it's just like, yeah, so I loved it, it's brilliant, it's amazing, but why so short? Okay, so enough complaining about how they're little chicken nuggets of episodes, and I kind of wanted a double quarter pounder meal on the side with my 6 chicken nuggets. And in fact, maybe 10 nuggets, not 6. 6 isn't enough. I need to eat. So this is my spoiler thoughts for episode 2, 3, and 4, Count Dooku's Arc. I found this really compelling. I love the idea that we see a little story where they go to a town and the town is all like decrepit and destroyed, and you're kind of like, okay, there's a kidnapped kid, they're gonna have to save the kid, and it feels very kind of generic, and you can kind of see it going one way, the way a Star Wars kind of usually would. But immediately it becomes so nuanced and complex. The whole town has kidnapped him, and immediately you can sense that Count Dooku's like, no, I don't like any of this. I'm not going to side with this senator guy. And we have an amazing showdown. We have Count Dooku going slightly dark, evil, Sithy, when he does the force choke, and then Qui-Gon's like, don't do it, master! It's an amazing start to this arc, and it was surprisingly well written. I think maybe just because of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, I keep forgetting that like Star Wars can be good. And I don't know why. Andor's out right now, and it's so well written. But this really did remind me, the Count Dooku arc reminded me of Andor. Like, political intrigue, really nuanced characters, like really well thought out and layered characters that are kind of grey and murky. And like you're seeing Count Dooku and he's not just like, I was a good guy. And then he's like, actually I'm all evil because I wanted power. Or whatever. Not to say you can't just have a cackling villain. I love me a Palpatine and all his like, unlimited power speeches and moments and, you know, all those bits. And I think they did a really good job of this. Like, the way you can kind of just see Count Dooku working it out. And I think it does a really good job of being a prequel where it's like, they know that we all know that Count Dooku turns evil. So anytime you just see him kind of like respond to a situation, or like, you know, in the second episode, Mace Windu's like gets the leader of Master and he's like, hey, did you know you were gonna get Master before this? Is that why you were being so like goody two shoes? And you can just kind of see how his brain is working and realizing, hey, no, like they clearly did the wrong thing. They killed a Jedi. They shouldn't have done this. But they're doing it for the right reasons, yet we're not allowing them, and they're saying how we're just like lapdogs for like the government and the Senate, and we're all just about power and giving like power back to the big rich people, and we're not really about peace for everyone. And he agrees with all of these thoughts, yet Mace Windu is kind of more focused on his career and like kind of the corporate side of it all, which I just found like really compelling. And it's strengthened by our knowledge of Count Dooku turning evil. So like a little phrase or a little look from the character, and we're inferring so much more because we know that this is all leading to him turning to the dark side. And so all of that in the first 2 episodes I found just utterly compelling, really, really exciting. It's great to have him paired off against Mace Windu in that second episode. Mace Windu sucks! I'm totally on Count Dooku's side, like, and I know he's evil and he's gonna do some awful things to a little Mrs. Yoda. So episode 4, the last one of Count Dooku's story, time jumps a little bit and we're suddenly in the Phantom Menace era. We get a little bit of a cheeky kind of reference thingy where he's deleting the Camino, hard drive thingy? I don't know, you know, that thingy from the movie. And it's fun to see that, but when we're given so little for the story and it's only going to be 35 minutes, it's something I don't need to see. I knew he did that. I don't need to see him just do it. It's nice to kind of put it in context of where we are in the story, but it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh, if we're going to spend so little time doing stuff, I'd rather have more time with him looking at this beautiful tree and mourning Qui-Gon's death. Like, that scene to me was utterly powerful, so amazing, and it was really nice to hear him talk about how, like, Qui-Gon was from Coruscant. But then I kept going, oh, I would have loved to maybe have a scene in a previous episode, you know, if we were given 6 episodes, of him and Qui-Gon maybe going back to Qui-Gon's home in Coruscant, and they can have a scene, so this doesn't feel like, you know, expository dialogue of things that happened. They could have shown us how much he loved trees, and then when he dies, you could have cut to this, and it would kind of have more of an emotional impact. It really just does feel like we watched episodes 2 and 3 and then 6 of the arc. Like, we see the end, but there's like a couple of middle bits in between that I feel like we didn't really get. I wanted more with him and Qui-Gon, because I've never really considered the fact that Count Dooku is on the side of the evil, yet he still would have loved Qui-Gon, his old apprentice, and yet Maul kills Qui-Gon. Maybe the best moment is when he goes to confront Palpatine. He's like, you've gone too far. Why'd you kill Qui-Gon? And Palpatine's just like, because I don't give a shit about anything. I'm evil, dude. Look at the cloak and just where we've met. I'm so clearly very evil. But it's so interesting to flesh out and add so many layers to Count Dooku, where it's like he's mourning his student, but like Qui-Gon never would have joined him. And I just think there's so much more stuff we could have got if we'd had more time with them to kind of, you know, be master and apprentice. Like, I really do think this Count Dooku one, more so than the Ahsoka one, because she's had so much development and other stuff. 3 little snippets, that works fine. But for Count Dooku, I really feel like I want to see a movie of this with these scenes in it, because it's so well written, it's so interesting, and I love that they kind of bring in little elements. Like, there's a Lady Yoda in Phantom Menace. She's the most famous of the Yoda species, except for Yoda. And Baby Yoda. So I suppose she's the least famous of the Yoda species, whatever they're called. I don't know, it's a mystery or something, right? Or have they revealed it in a book or something? But I really like the fact that Yaddle's like, not in the second and third ones. So Dave Filoni's like, okay, alright, we're gonna kill Yaddle. Count Dooku is going to kill Yaddle. And it's like a really fun scene of her like following, and she gets there and she's like, Count Dooku, how could have you done this? And they have a big old fight, and it's like, sure, it's fine. It's pretty much just like Count Dooku and Yoda's fight in the second one. It didn't really do anything for me, apart from being like, I love lightsabers! You know, which is always fun. But the bit that I absolutely love is Count Dooku just like closes a giant metal like door on her, just crushing her to death, which is the most horrific. Like, I laughed out loud because it was so horrible. Like, I couldn't believe they crushed Yaddle. Like, her little bones and everything would have splattered into mush and just... It is so horrific to crush something so small with a big metal door. It's horrific. And then they ruin that and have a big epic Star Wars moment, and the music's all Star Warsy, and she's all like, she pushes us up. I don't know, it just felt like a wasted opportunity to show the last moment of Count Dooku not being an evil Sith Lord. And crushing someone very small with a giant metal door is, that's definitely one way to do it. Also, it was so great to have Qui-Gon Jinn back, but because we don't get to spend any time with anyone, I don't feel like we got enough of him. And it kind of reminded me, it was better, but it reminded me of the cameo in Obi-Wan, where it's just like, oh, he's here! Oh, you put him at the end so you didn't have to write any actual dialogue in any scenes. And yeah, fun. Oh, it's a cameo. Yeah, it feels more like fan service than, you know, a scene with the character. And this kind of felt the same, where it was like, look, he's back! The talking, isn't this? It's Phantom Menace! And it's like, oh, it's over because it's a 12-minute episode. All right, yeah, here we go. Okay, fair enough. All right. And I think if it wasn't as well written, and if the stories weren't as engaging and nuanced and murky grey, and, you know, all the things I've said, I think I wouldn't care as much. I'd be like, yeah, but I don't want to see them do a scene with them, like a whole, like, 15 minutes. I don't want that because they wouldn't do it well. Whereas from what we've gotten, they would have done that fantastically. It was so well written. I just don't understand. Last thought, why doesn't Yaddle talk like Yoda? What is wrong with Yoda? Why does he talk the way he does? I just have so many questions. Is it a mental illness? Can I not make jokes because of that? Like, because I want to keep making jokes about his stupid voice and how he does it. But so I hope they don't reveal it's that. That would make me feel bad. Or is Yoda a bit of a troll? You know, in Empire Strikes Back, he starts trolling Luke at the start and just pretending he's not Yoda, even though they're wasting time. I understand that it's like a test. I get that. I've seen the movie. But I also feel like it's just Yoda trolling because he loves to troll and he's like stuck in this swamp and he's super bored. So I like the idea that maybe Yoda talks the way he does, because clearly it's not like, you know, a race thing with his race of Yodas or whatever. But that he's just a troll. He just talks like that because he thinks it's funny and he's like just a bit of a prankster. So now for my spoiler thoughts for episode 1, 5, and 6, the Ahsoka Tano story. Overall, I enjoyed the last one, kind of, but this felt like a really weird 3 episodes to give us. Like, the first one is her as a little baby. There's a whole thing. There's a big tiger, a big saber-tooth tiger. He's all like, growl, and then it's just like, whoa, and she does the force and, you know, stops it. And they're like, oh, how could she save the village from this giant tiger? And then one of them, she's a Jedi. I think this is a brilliant cold open to an Ahsoka Tano movie. Spend 5 to 10 minutes setting up that she's a little baby Jedi. Cuts, boom, Ahsoka Tano, the movie, and you're like, oh boy, I'm in. This is so good. But when I'm only given 36 minutes with the character, like, I don't want 12 of those minutes to her be a little baby touching a tiger. Like, it's just, it's fine, and it's not bad, but it's not exceptional entertaining. If you're giving me 3 stories, why is that one of them? Second story, training montage. This just felt like fan service. It's like, do you miss Anakin? I'm like, kinda. I mean, there's a lot of Clone Wars episodes. I can always just go back and watch Clone Wars episodes. But he's back, so that's super cool. I'm super excited to see what they do with him. I hope it's not like Season 7 of the Clone Wars, where they don't really utilize him and give him anything to do, and it feels like a cameo, and it feels like fan service cameo. Oh, it's that again. It's just a fan service cameo, and he's like, Ahsoka Tano, you gotta train because I love you, and it's life or death. And it's like, well, that's all good stuff. None of the stuff in this is bad. It's just like, if this is all I'm getting, I want more. I love a little chicken nugget. I love a chicken nugget. I'll eat 3 chicken nuggets with some sweet and sour sauce any day of the week. But if I'm sitting down for a meal I may never have again, I want to have 10 chicken nuggets minimum, and then a double quarter pounder, and then like a fries, maybe a second fries, and maybe even a little cheeky hamburger. Like, I know I sound like a big old fatty, and that is true. I just love to eat trash, but I just, you know, I want to be satisfied and filled, and not leaving the series feeling like, oh, so what did I get for Ahsoka Tano? Baby origin story. She's a Jedi. Yeah, I knew she was a Jedi. Cool. Second episode, training montage with some fan service cameos. Cool. Wasn't bad, but kind of wasn't anything either. Episode 3, non-fleshed out, one-dimensional characters in a situation that I would have loved to have been explored for about 30 minutes, so that I loved everyone, so that when the Sith Lord, who comes with the most amazing looking mask ever, and he's like, Ahsoka Tano, I thought you were dead. Why does he know who Ahsoka Tano is? Like, is there some kind of, like, rivalry between these two? How does he know anything about this? Has he talked to Darth Vader? Like, I have so many questions about this character and all these things, but it's just like, ooh, farm. Oh, one guy, he likes the Empire, but she doesn't. He betrays them all, and everyone on the farm dies. Why should I care? You haven't developed them all to a point where I care. Like, I care on like a base level of, oh no, it's sad the Sith have burnt and killed people. But you can develop these characters very, very quickly with some really well-written dialogue. The way that the Count Dooku stuff did, even though it was too short, it still did a really good job of like making me care about everything and all the characters and everything, especially that first episode. Episode 2 was really strong in that regard. But these characters, they all felt like nothing stereotypes. Like even the Sith Lord, he looked incredible, and there's like a really big build up to the fight, and all I kept thinking was, well, I guess at least the final one will just be a really good fight. Like hopefully, like the one in Season 7 of Clone Wars, where they do some mocap, they make it look really, really great, and despite all my thoughts and feelings about everything, at least we'll get a really good fight. Oh no, she grabs his sword and kills him with it. Spectacular, amazing moment, but why should I care? We haven't developed anybody. I only care about Ahsoka Tano from other things outside of Tales of the Jedi, whereas I would have really loved Tales of the Jedi to work kind of self-contained in a way, as well as being another nugget in the story of Ahsoka Tano. It just felt like in the end like a generic cliche version of something that could have been really, really great. I love the idea of like almost like a Clint Eastwood Ahsoka Tano movie where she walks into a town, they need some help, and by the end she grabs the Sith's lightsaber and kills him in one fell swoop. Like, what a great end to a story. I just wish everything beforehand was an actual story and not just kind of nothing. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I'd love to know what everyone thought of Tales of the Jedi. Were you super happy with it being short, fun stories? Or were you like me and you were like, I'm not filled with my 6 chicken nuggets, despite how delicious they may have been?